Now the latest on health. We know, you know, in fact, a lot of people in this audience are probably better educated than most dietitians and nutritionists, certainly most doctors, that the more flavonoids that you take into your diet, the more you're going to stay younger. Now, this is not guessing. There are thousands of studies on this. But in this case, Harvard University, along with a group of other universities, found that women with the highest average intake of flavones, flavanones, and anthocyanins and flavonols, these are all chemicals in food, had the greatest odds of healthy aging, defined as, quote, no major chronic diseases or major impairments in cognitive or physical function or mental health, end quote. So the findings were further substantiated by consistent data from flavonoid-rich foods, including oranges, all of your berries, onions, and apples. And this is what they found at the French National Institute of Health, Medical Research, University of Bordeaux, Harvard School of Public Health, and Brigham and Women's Hospital. Quote, flavonoids may contribute to reducing chronic disease, maintaining physical, cognitive, and mental health with aging via their potential to decrease oxidative stress and inflammation, which are two general pathways, end quote. I feel that, and this was published in the prestigious American Journal of Health, I believe that they are half correct. My research showed, and mine's far more definitive than anyone at Harvard's ever done, because I spent 33 years as senior research fellow and director of the Anti-Aging Center at the Institute of Applied Biology, where I did a lot of studies and also 50 now clinical studies. And I can tell you that it's not just turning off inflammation that is in reducing oxidative stress. It is the ORAC, O-R-A-C, that. I don't have time today to go into ORACs, but that's the single most important thing to allow you to live a longer life. More than anything else, it's the ORACs. So you may not know about ORACs. I'll be very definitive in an upcoming program. So they got half of it right, and good for them for getting half of it right. Also, from the same Brigham and Women's Hospital, they measured body mass index. Now, body mass index is your body mass of fat, generally around the abdomen, and is closely correlated with insulin resistance and type 2 diabetes. And for decades, nutrition guidelines have emphasized the necessity of decreasing the intake of dietary fats. Yet even as studies demonstrate ties between foods laden with simple carbohydrates and metabolic dysfunction, much remains unknown about how the body processes large amounts of carbohydrate eaten in a single meal, which is one of the reasons I've been suggesting don't eat big meals. Have small meals. You feel better. You digest the food, have it metabolized and utilized much quicker. You have a cleaner and healthier elimination system when you eat smaller meals. But we tend to overeat at everything. We eat too much protein. The body can't store protein. It's broken down. And we eat too many fats and too many sugars. In fact, we just are eating everything wrong if you're the average person. So at this Boston Medical Center in Brigham Women's Hospital, they looked at healthy normal weight and healthy overweight participants as they consumed less carbohydrate. Their findings revealed that excess carbohydrates contribute to metabolic dysfunction. There's your diabetes. There's your high blood pressure. There's your heart disease. This is published in the American Journal of Physiology, Endocrinology, and Metabolism. So what you eat absolutely, positively, unequivocally makes a difference. Now, you heard me mention that in the last study, in fact, the last 4 studies, we've done modified fasting, meaning we end our last meal. Well, in our studies, we ended the last meal at 6 o'clock, and we wouldn't have the next meal until, you can have water, of course, and juices, but the next meal not until 9 or 10 o'clock the next morning. So you would have around 14, 15 hours with body fast. That really, I cannot emphasize enough, that helps slow down the aging and disease process. Here's what the University of Wisconsin just found out. Quote, fasting is required to see the full benefit of caloric restriction in mice. And it says, quote, over the last few decades, scientists have discovered that long-term caloric restriction provides a wealth of benefits in animals, lower weight, better blood sugar, even longer lifespans. Okay, we didn't do this with mice. We did it with human beings. Thousands upon tens of thousands of individuals in these 50 studies. One study alone had over 3,000 participants. The anti-aging studies, everyone's gotten their blood chemistry done, so we know what it's doing as far as your hormone levels, your C-reactive protein, homocysteine, fibrinogen, all these other inflammatory markers, your telomerase, the enzyme necessary for keeping your telomeres strong and tightly bound to the chromosomes so you don't age. So yeah, caloric restriction, smaller meals, and modified fasting together, they work magnificently on the body. So that's important. And finally, from Cambridge University, which is, of course, in the United Kingdom, the lockdown on children, they found that the children who spent more time in nature fared best. Simply put, children from less affluent backgrounds are likely to have found COVID lockdowns more challenging to their mental health because they experience a lower connection with nature than their wealthier peers. The study has found that children who increased their connection to nature during the COVID-19 lockdown were likely to have lower levels of behavioral and emotional problems compared to those whose connection to nature stayed the same or decreased, regardless of their socioeconomic status. And of course, we didn't need a University of Cambridge and a University of Sussex study to find that you're going to be healthy if you spend more time around green, around nature. And it does not in any way impact your susceptibility to COVID or any other virus. You got to let kids get outside. You got to let kids play in the dirt. You got to let kids be exposed to our environment. That's how they build a healthy immune system, keeping them in these professional class bubbles so that nary a germ ever touches their body means that you're going to have a sickly kid. Wouldn't you imagine someone who's smart enough, disciplined enough, determined enough to become a lawyer, doctor, engineer, and scientist would be dumb enough to assume that nature doesn't play any role in a child's development and germs are to be feared? No. Unfortunately, when they write an honest textbook about Pasteur, they will give the person who was really the genius in that time, Brigham, who said it's not the microbe, it's the medium. It is the environment you're in that really determines our overall health. This was published in People Nature. And that's the latest in health and healing. We're